Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on social impact of Metaverse. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. James Eid, Mr. David Smith, Mr. Daniel, and Madam Ali Rice. First, I would like to give chance, Mr. James Eid.
Oh, thank you very much. But my experience has shown that I should defer to David to set the table for us and chime in after.
Well, I wasn't quite
Mr.
prepared for
David.
that. Well, Sharif, thank you. And James, I will make sure I help you down the road too a little bit. No, the topic today is the social impact of the metaverse is a great one to look at. And one that has a lot of interesting turns on how our view and the growth of the metaverse has changed over the last year. 6 months ago, I would have given you a very different answer than I am today on the social impact of the metaverse, because we have seen the adoption of it slowing down. And even Meta, Facebook, which changed their names to reflect the metaverse, has stopped multiple of their developments of the metaverse. So we've seen that kind of come and change and how it can be used. The metaverse has many different ways it could impact society and culture. Some of them is identification, communication, socialization, employment, entertainment, media, training, education, many different areas, but privacy and security is one of the ones which is still there that needs to be helped. And you're going to see that have some very different impacts as you go forward with what we can do with it and how it can work. And you saw. Let me just compare this to some things in the past. And we talked briefly about these in the early days of our metaverse discussions. Yeah, the metaverse in some ways can go back to the early 1920s when there was a new artistic and cultural movement called surrealism. And that same type of approach back then really came up and is used in part of the way we look at the metaverse today. And the term metaverse was actually coined back in 1992. And it was described as a three-dimensional social platform. And many different people described it in many different ways. And one of the first attempts to do this was one that I actually enjoyed playing on that really didn't take off, but is still around. And it was Linden Labs launched a platform called Second Life. And you had companies buying islands on Second Life. You were beginning to play with it. And again, that's kind of what you saw today as we look at where the metaverse is going. And you begin to really push and see it. There's different concepts of it, though, as you look at how Meta has gone, where Microsoft has gone, where some of the big consulting firms have gone. And Gartner has actually predicted that by 2026, you will see some penetration where at least 25% of the population will touch the metaverse every month. And, that's big, but that's not very big in penetration. And there's a lot of issues, particularly around security. Many interesting stories when you look at societal impact of the metaverse is people are talking about the metaverse is like George Orwell's 1984 and its impact it could have. And it's just so many different ways you can see it. The metaverse today is early in its growth. It is not really a true reality yet as an evolution of the internet yet. It has great pilots, great examples. One of them I've been involved with some called PEX is really fun with how they can do virtual conferences and stuff. You also see that Microsoft made an acquisition of Activision Blizzard that could be changing for it. But the metaverse has so many individual type of impacts that it can go on there still. So let me just stop there and turn it back to you, Dr. Sharif.
Well, Daniel, why don't you take over? And
Yeah, well, I can
Mr.
pick up on
Daniel.
some of those. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Sharif. Great introduction, David. You've got that ability to speak and think on your feet, which me being a candidate for vice president with the Transhumanist Party, I'm going to have to get better and better at that. Toastmasters was a good introduction for that. That's a kind of a metaverse skill, as being able to think and speak on your feet. If you don't know what Toastmasters is, by the way, it's the world's largest nonprofit educational organization, which is pretty amazing. It's in about 150 plus countries, and there are little clubs that get together on a weekly basis, and people improve their communication skills, their public speaking skills. So, and that's really going to be a huge driver of the metaverse. If it, we got some background noise there. If someone could mute who's unmuted. Allie, I think your mic is hot, Allie.
Oh, sorry.
Another metaverse problem. It's like content filtering. Yeah, I had to recently change my settings on Discord from voice activity to push to talk, because if you don't have it set up that way, you'll get all kinds of distracting background sounds, which we're still getting, by the way. Yeah. Can you maybe mute Ali Rice or someone who's... There we go. Okay. So, yeah, I think the metaverse is kind of like virtual reality, because it had a lot of, people thought it was going to be the next big thing, and there were rollouts of virtual reality, but it was never quite the pieces in place. The equipment wasn't ready, the hardware wasn't ready, the software wasn't quite ready. And I think the metaverse, catching on, is going through a similar kind of, is it ready for prime time, as the saying goes. And I think what they're ignoring, the metaverse advocates are ignoring, is some of the ideas about basic human social cohesion. Because right now, what technology has had a tendency to do is increase alienation rather than increasing social cohesion. And when you think about what does build social cohesion, I've talked before about Robin Dunbar and his work about brain size versus how many social relationships you can cultivate, and he came up with this number that averages about 150. It could be 50 people or 300 people, but it averages about 150 people per person, a number of maintainable social relationships. And it turns out one of the main things that maintains relationships is the same sense of humor. Laughter is such an amazing experience, especially getting together and laughing with your local community. That's why we need more, comedy clubs and open mics and things. But that can happen also in the metaverse. That is happening, and I think that has a huge future, because when people laugh in a group, first of all, it's 4 times easier to laugh in a group than when you're alone. So that releases endorphins, which are these little peptide molecules that make your brain feel good. And so that's going to be a big part of the metaverse, is getting together in these Dunbar-sized groups and laughing and releasing endorphins and meeting people that you share interests with and you share the sense of humor with, and then spend more time in that group and even start trading within that group. It's like the old saying, life is too short to drink cheap beer. Maybe life is too short to interact outside your Dunbar tribe. So the metaverse is going to actually give us the ability to do more laughing and trading and interacting in these smaller sized tribes. And I think with the rebranding of Twitter into X, where the founder there is trying to create that original everything platform, a place you go to hang out, a place you go to buy, a place you go to exchange the latest water cooler news, a place you go to laugh together. I think this is probably going to be the secret sauce that really makes the metaverse take off. But I think we also need to have a even playing field. We should have a metaverse that is backed up in the simplest possible technology, universal language, clay tablets, trading units that are based on, labor hours. So you don't need we need a metaverse that works both with technology and without technology in an integrated way where it will scale to either extreme. So those are my initial thoughts. Hope that struck some chords, and I'll pass the metaverse mic.
Madam Ali Rice, what do you want to discuss?
Hi. I have done a little bit of research actually. So there's, as far as I can see, there's lots of I think there's equally kind of downsides and upsides to the metaverse really. And recently I saw a program actually, and there was a young guy that was creating NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens. But anyway, he was creating this amazing artwork in his bedroom, and he was earning huge amounts of money, and everything was in the digital virtual space. And I think his parents just thought he was kind of, like really not doing anything in his bedroom, and he's creating these amazing things that were actually getting a great deal of money. So I think the thing is, for me, there's a really creative side to it that's quite exciting, but I don't think it necessarily, it's still not necessarily as good as the real thing in some ways. And I also think, there's somebody that I know that uses Midjourney to create, so he just puts in a short line and they create these incredible images. But when I was talking to Cody, my son, he was saying that essentially they steal those images from other people and kind of composite together the digital kind of software or whatever it is. So anyway, so for me, I think kind of one of my most amazing experiences, to be honest, since 2020 is being part of the Innovation Forum and realizing that it's incredible to have a local and global reach and be kind of thousands of miles away from each other and still be in the same space. So I think there is, that's incredible. And obviously physically it wouldn't be possible to kind of conduct our lives and be in the same space. So yeah, so I think that's incredible. I think there's definitely ways of kind of educating and kind of self-development that I've been involved in lots of training courses and things in the last 3 or 4 years as well. So and I do quite a lot of yoga and meditation. And I know it sounds a bit weird, but kind of like kind of quantum downloads. So I kind of meditate and then I can write poetry and things like that. So I think the thing, and that was actually inspired by a training course and a mentor that I had as well. So I think the reach, that's not only kind of a physical reach, but quite a spiritual kind of almost universal kind of reach of kind of consciousness is amazing. So I think that's quite cool as well. And I know that virtual, designs like virtual kind of designs to see how buildings are going to look or how furniture is going to look in your house, or, it's kind of having that kind of augmented reality so you can see what's going to happen, or if they're going to kind of make new developments in an area so that you can see it without having to imagine what it's going to look like before it happens. And I think so transforming training and education is definitely something that's already happened as well. And I know I'm part of the Royal Society of Arts, and because education had to go online when we were all locked down, the RSA reckon that they've pushed the learning experience virtually on about a decade to where it would have been otherwise. But it's also increased the gaps of access to technology and those that don't have devices, or so there is that kind of integration, as Dan said, that it's not always accessible to everyone. And if the technologies, because everybody at the high school where my children go to, they already had an iPad scheme in place to make learning more interactive. So they got to pivot straight away. And I think kind of if that technology wasn't available, so I think in primary schools, they suffered a lot more because there wasn't necessarily technology at home, then there wasn't the same reach. So I think, let me think of something else. And for me as well, because my children have had VR headsets and done gaming and things like that, and I've experienced a few of the games, and I find it quite disorientating. So I think the thing is that it's amazing that you can get connection, but I still think you need to kind of have a very kind of real sense of the world, really. So I think it's kind of making meaningful choices that have purpose that's important for me. And as they were talking about kind of gaming and how, in the future you'll be able to be in the middle of the game or in the middle of the stadium when your favorite band's on stage, or so it's kind of, I guess the kind of the possibilities are endless, and definitely in health and medicine they already use VR and augmented reality to do certain surgeries and stuff like that, and I definitely see where kind of digital kind of when you need to do something in a so that you're very precise. I definitely realized that kind of robotics and kind of that digital ability to see what you're doing and have a picture of whatever it is you're operating on is an incredible thing to have. So yeah, I think there's a kind of whole spectrum of opportunities.
Yeah. That was awesome. Thank you all for your comments. I'm glad that I delayed starting this off. But my definition of the multiverse, would start with the technology. It's blockchain enabled, and we're familiar with that in terms of cryptocurrency and NFTs and as Ali mentioned and that sort of thing. But what it's given the society is the ability to have a single identity crossing over to multiple virtual landscapes. And this has enabled a great deal of profound experiences. There's a couple of things that I would mention is there a built-in social inequity to this, where some of us have access to this multiverse and some of us do not? And does that have a social impact? And I would say yes, it does, and we need to be aware of it. I don't know if we can control for it, but we need to be aware of it. And the other thing is I love fantasy. I think fantasy is great. I think fantasy is healthy, but there's a disassociative aspect to some of this as well, where you're not seeing other people as people, but as reflections of people, mirror images of people perhaps, but you're disassociated from the reality of interpersonal communication and interaction. And this, I think, is something that needs to be monitored. And can we devise this kind of universe where all of these things, these negative influences can be minimized and the beautiful parts of it maximized? And who can do this? Who's going to do this? Who's going to be behind the wheel, turning the cogs in the machine? I don't know. And it's in the wild, wild west in many ways. So stay tuned. Thanks, Sharif.
Mr. David Smith, when we discuss about impact, what do you think? That Metaverse still has the ability to create sustainable impact in the business industry?
Oh, I think you will see the metaverse continue to morph, continue to change. And James, I love what you said, but I am going to disagree with you on one point. I have seen many implementations already of the metaverse that were not built on blockchain. And while blockchain is a technology that can use blockchain, it's just a distributed ledger. So it could be part of the metaverse, but other type of e-commerce, other types of frameworks for tracking and updating information has been used there as well. One of the challenges with using blockchain in the metaverse, James, is it's slow. And if I create an immersive environment, totally virtual, immersive 3D environment, you've got to do things to optimize the speed, and blockchain, unfortunately, is slow. So that's the one thing I would disagree with a little bit on what you said. But to go back to more of your question, Shri, it's really interesting. The investment bank Jefferies has recently said that if Metaverse achieves its hype, and that was a big if, it achieves the hype, it will be one of the most disruptive events to how we live that the world has seen, and should create a lot of potential application for those in the world who have the infrastructure, the network, the bandwidth, the computing power, the display power, the 3D capabilities, the virtual reality type of glasses that can be used for it. It's going to change how we work, how we play, how we train, just many different places. It can change how we shop. You know, one of the early adopters to the metaverse was IKEA, and they were a person using something called their Place app to begin to use augmented reality as part of it, and use it in a metaverse environment. Training, education. One of the places where I see small metaverses, not the large ones that are in the hype, but we're seeing it being used as virtual healthcare keepers. We can see it using in therapy, but one of the biggest places I love where it's seen is surgeons are using it in surgery to help guide certain surgical procedures. And yes, all of these can be used with digital twins. And if Rob was on here, he would throw a lot of digital twins into it. We're seeing it used in travel, in selling real estate. But again, Sharif, part of the challenges there, like I said, is privacy, protection for the children, health concerns. There are some new health terms I love. One of them that is now has in the United States, and really, Daniel, James, don't laugh with this. There is now a billing code for virtual reality hangovers. Because when you're in that virtual environment, it actually gives you these horrible migraine headaches to a lot of people. And it changes your way, it changes your perception, it changes where you focus. Instead of your eyes having a focus that goes feet, yards, it's focus of inches. And that type of, I love it, like I said, virtual reality hangovers is a new one that's going to impact the metaverse. Access inequalities, huge, huge. We think the internet has given us have and have nots. Throw the metaverse on it and you'll see it. Legality, there's so many legal and regulatory issues that we have to sort out with the metaverse. You know, one of the simplest ones is, Ali, if your kids are on the metaverse and they're playing with other kids on the metaverse, and their avatar in the metaverse comes up and hits your kid in the face in the metaverse, is that assault? Is that battery? And there's actually, if you take it and look at how we apply our identity to it, that actually would qualify as assault today under the current regulations. And so you look at things like that and go, how can we work that out? Desensitization. You know, if I'm working in a virtual environment with a virtual avatar and doing all these other things, am I desensitized to violence, to racism, to stereotypes? can my identity be hacked there? And if I am, boy, that's a huge one if I am fully involved in the metaverse. And these are just some of the really sides there. The other thing that was to me real interesting is the chief technology officer in Meta wrote an employee memo about the metaverse, and he told employees that they will never be able, it will be impossible to moderate in what people say and how they act in the metaverse. There's no way you can do this at scale. And that the Meta has begun to work with policymakers on how to begin to look at how to put these regulations and standards in place. Now, more recently, they have cut back that effort by over half. So that to me is going back and saying, you know, the metaverse was a great hype. We're now entering the stages where it's okay. We think it's a great idea, but how is it going to happen? One other thing, just as a statistic, because I love statistics. There was one of the consulting groups that was looking at a virtual metaverse setup using the some of the headsets, and it was a game where people can form virtual communities and play cards and other games in it. What he did is he looked at this over a day period, and in that one period using VR chat, there were over 250 problematic incidents where the avatars made physical threats against minors, made sexual threats against minors. Another case, their avatar was adapted and they showed sexually explicit content to the minor, and others like this. So there is that dark side we've got to deal with as this goes forward. And Sharif, I know I've touched on your question, I've talked around it, but those are some of the things. And James, I agree. Do we do metaverse jails? I'm sure we can do that virtually, but how does that impact me physically? And does it make a difference there? So Sharif, I hope that helped.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel.
Oh, great. I was hoping you'd call me next. Yeah, I wanted to clarify a couple things. James, I heard you slip into using the term multiverse, whereas today we're talking about the metaverse. But actually, they're all consumed under the omniverse. Now, as I think David pointed out, the term metaverse first was used by Neil Stephenson in his 1992 novel Snow Crash. But the origin of multiverse is even more interesting because that was William James in 1895, who's an American philosopher who used the term multiverse because he wanted a term to refer to like these non-physical philosophical components. But okay, so then you got the omniverse, which covers everything. But yeah, typically the metaverse implies a level of interoperability for users, although a lot of that interoperability has gone away. The multiverse is more like distinct worlds that don't really interoperate so much. And I guess we lost James. He said he might have to leave early, so it was good to have him here. Yeah, I mean, he's big into the chess metaverse space, which I think is a great project that he's doing. So he's talked about that before. But yeah, I think this key is going to be interoperability. And an interesting development has been this world coin recently, where you get a new kind of crypto coin by having your iris scanned, because proving your identity is kind of one of the elements of secret sauce that has to be nailed down before we get the really resilient rollout of the metaverse for lots of people. A lot of people in the world are non-banked and non-ID'd. They don't have a form of identification that's they can lay their hands on and that they can show to people. I think it's on the order of billions of people that are lacking banking and identity. But it's interesting because the cell phone actually has been a solution for a lot of these people. There's apps that let you transfer money around on a cell phone. You can use your cell phone in a limited form of identification, even though identities can be spoofed, and that is an increasingly big problem. Is, how do you know you're dealing with someone who's actually who they say they are? This has been a problem for a long time in what we know as cyberspace. And actually, cyberspace, that's another term that came out of science fiction. William Gibson was the science fiction writer who invented that term. I think it was in his novel Neuromancer. Or as someone said, cyberspace is where you are when you're talking on the telephone. So that was like one of the earliest ways to define these virtual worlds. But yeah, Ali, I think you were correct in saying the big use of the metaverse is going to be digitally twinning things in virtual space before we go ahead and make the mistakes in real space with them. So that's going to be a huge, beneficial property of more and more metaverse usage, because the old saying builders had was measure twice and cut once. That's it. It's better than cutting twice and then like, oops, I just measured my cut and it wasn't the right one. So yes, there's a good prospect for the metaverse. But again, I want this to be as, the Transhumanist Party that I'm running with Tom Ross for the president and vice president seats for the U.S. We are a global party. We're technically maybe violating some of the rules. Usually a political party has to be just the citizens of that country, but until we, we're the transhumanist movement is kind of a philosophical worldwide movement, and I think it actually includes all sapient and sentient life, treating each other as humanely as possible. And that's kind of, I think, what we're trying to make happen as a whole civilization confronted with these evolutionary crossroads that are coming at us faster and faster. So yeah, it's going to take a metaverse to deal with the future surge, as David Wood calls it, the accelerating technologies that, I'm actually kind of heartened that our governance leaders seem to be actually talking about AI and talking about ETs and how that's going to impact life on Earth. So maybe that's the groups like the transhumanist movement that are moving that Overton window out into the realm of mainstream discussion. And the metaverse, of course, is doing that too, because we're all going to need to become more savvy metaverse navigators and pilots if we don't want to be, enslaved by someone else's future. We got to create our own futures. That's the old saying: I have to create my own system or be a slave in someone else's system. So go forth and use the metaverse for your own liberation. I'll land my metaverse plane there. Thanks.
Madam Ali Rice. Ali, are you with me?
Yeah, I am. One of the things actually that I saw in the research that I did is apparently Poland are using AR and VR technology to teach science lessons. It's with Half-Life and is it Alex? I don't know what that is, but apparently in Poland they're already using technology to teach their science students, which is quite cool. So I think it's like anything, isn't it? It just depends on the impact of what it is you do and whether it's negative or positive. And essentially there's an argument to say that the metaverse gives people a new connection and also increases the ability so that you don't feel socially isolated. But also in a virtual space, you can become isolated from anyone that's actually physically around you in your own environment. So I think the thing is, it's kind of a catch-22 situation. So I think it's about kind of having healthy, meaningful relationships and connections and knowing where one stops and one starts. And some of my most impacting friends I've never met, and particularly in 2020. So I know of them and I've been in touch with them and I've seen them virtually. And I was my mentor, I was trained all the way through for a couple of years, and she lives in Australia. So and she's probably had more impact on my transformation and the way I see things than anyone else, but I have never physically met her. So, and I think there's another guy actually, because my dad died 6 years ago, and there's another guy that I met online that did this. I don't know what he did, but anyway, but he realized that I was carrying a lot of grief, and he managed to kind of unlock that grief so that instead of being tight and held in, I managed to let go of it. And I think the thing is, and I've never met him, so I think the thing is, and I know through meditation and things like that that there's things that happen energetically that you can't explain, but you don't physically necessarily have to be with that person. So in fact, when my dad was seriously ill, I did the 21-day meditations with Oprah Winfrey and Deepak Chopra. And the thing is, they helped me get through probably one of the worst times of my life. So I think the thing is that ability to find something to support you that you have, that you have control of, and you're not relying on anyone else outside of you, but that it's kind of going to keep you upright and centered, is really important. So, and I think in education as well, my eldest nephew currently tutors online, and he's done a general engineering degree at Oxford, but he helps children that are doing IB and A levels in maths or advanced maths. So I think the thing is, and that means that it's a win-win for him, because he tutors people from all over the world, and he lives in Texas, but he goes to uni over here in Oxford. But wherever he is in the world, he can reach his students. So, that's incredible. And the thing is, his kind of utilizing his skills, his earning money, and he can still be in his home space or his university space. So I think the thing is that ability to be flexible. And for me, actually, I'm just about to apply to do this online. Prince Charles, who's now King Charles III. When I first started my business, I was supported by the Prince's Trust, and they also run a royal drawing school as well. And I'm just about to apply for an online drawing year so that I can complete this online drawing course, but not have to go down to London, because my youngest child's just about to do her GCSEs in the next 12 months. So the thing is that, that kind of online opportunity would enable me to be here and do what I want to do without leaving the house and, all the things that I need to do, and just to be there to support her. So I think that kind of that online provision is incredible, and it wasn't that, before 2020, they didn't have an online provision, and the only reason that they have got one is because they got locked down. So I think, that reach is amazing with technology, but I'm not so sure whether the metaverse is the answer. I asked my son actually just before I came online, and from a young person's point of view, I think they already do their own thing, gaming and communicating, this generation. And I don't think the metaverse is on their radar at all. So for them, it doesn't feel like it's going to have any kind of positive impact. So we'll see. But anyway, that's my viewpoints so far.
Mr. David.
I love the diversity of opinions, and I love how we're working through the various elements of the metaverse. And we're spending time looking at social impacts, and it's not just social impacts of the metaverse, but social impacts of the technology. And it's undeniable that technology, digitalization, different visualization technologies, different interaction technologies, different uses of conversational artificial intelligence, such as in 3D avatars and others, is changing education, changing training. It's even changing with how customer support stuff. It's changing all of these other elements too. And the metaverse should be able to help us look at that in a form factor that is more immersive. And the goal of the metaverse was to be in an immersive environment and take the future of the way we interact into immersive environment. So Sri, instead of having the four of us in boxes like we are now, in the metaverse, you might have a classroom set up for the World Talent Economic Forum. And the four of us might be on the front podium area. And I could just see, Allie, you would be sitting on a stool, Daniel, Sharif, and I would be sitting on a stool, and we would be talking to the people who are in the audience. But instead of us just talking to our camera, we would actually see at least avatars of the people who are online. And we might even use that as a way to get more feedback. When I'm giving speeches in person, I'm horrible. I never stand behind a podium. I walk the stage, I jump off the stage. I will walk the audience. I'll go to the back of the audience and listen to a question there. In fact, I'm so bad, I've been known to start speeches at the back of the room and walk up to the front to introduce myself as I'm walking down the aisle. Well, I can do that in the metaverse. I can't do that here. So that is some of the places where this can change as we go forward. You know, I would love to see some of that environment. You know, I've done so many teleconferences over the last decade that I'm comfortable with sitting in front of a camera. I'm comfortable with this, but still in my mind, I envision myself talking to the people who are listening at the other end. It'd be great to have at least even icons or avatars to be able to see that. When I'm giving speeches in real life, I love watching people's faces. And I can adjust what I'm saying, how I'm presenting based on the neurolinguistic programming input I'm getting back from them, how the body language is, what's going on. I pride myself at most conferences because I rarely have anybody leave my talks during the hour or so that they're normally going on. And part of that is the way I engage the audience. It will be easier to engage an audience in a metaverse than it is in the environment we have today in StreamYard, for example. So those are some of the things, Dr. Sharif, which I think is going to be very important for it. The other thing with the metaverse, and I'm going to put a big if around this, the metaverse can be used globally and should be used globally. Now, if I'm in places where the bandwidth is not good, God, it's going to be much harder. Talib, I love when he joins us on your programs from Jordan, but boy, he has never been on once when he didn't have a bandwidth problem. You know, when you were in Malaysia, Dr. Sharif, you time to time had some severe bandwidth problems as well. And the metaverse requires fat bandwidth and very high quality bandwidth to work. So there might be challenges as we go across part of the world that doesn't have it. And I'm including the United States. It would be very difficult in many rural environments of the United States to have enough bandwidth and a quality enough bandwidth to run a metaverse at any resolution. And that's just with one of the delivery mechanisms. I love the announcement I saw that Bangladesh is now getting Elon Musk's Skylink internet delivered to it, with a separate focus beam from some of his satellites. That should help in that part. I said I would love to see the same thing happen in Jordan, and we can all chip in and get Dr. Talif a subscription to it. But those are some of the things that we have to do with it. You always ask Sharif how it impacts entrepreneurs, how it impacts education. Well, the metaverse could do that. The metaverse could have virtual city halls set up in it for the government regulators. It can have virtual universities set up in it. I can set up virtual incubators. So Dr. Sharif, you might have your incubator in Bangladesh, but I might also have a World Talent Economic Forum incubator in the metaverse and divide it among different ways. Like I said, part of it could be the education part of it could be the mentorship. Part of it could be how do you raise money and work across it? How do you collaborate? And all those can become different areas in the World Talent Economic Forum's instance. So a lot of opportunities there, Dr. Sharif. And I hope this kind of keeps us going. So thank you.
Well, I could jump in if you
Mr.
want.
Daniel.
Yeah, thanks. Boy, actually, I was just finding out online that there's something called the Blockchain Council. David might know about this, but they offer a online program. It's a 5-hour class, costs $179, but you can be a lifetime certified certified metaverse expert. So there you go. You gotta pass an exam with 100 questions with at least 50. But I'm looking through the modules involved in the class, and it's actually each one of these could be like its own show. And David, yeah, I kind of visualize the World Talent Economy, science fair, where you can wander around these, like a convention hall, and be kind of like a in-person conference, only it could be like a 24/7 metaverse conference, right? Where you've got featured speakers going on. But if I can just tick off some of these things that this metaverse expert class teaches, they've got a super heading technologies involved in the metaverse. And point, metaverse as a product of extended reality. Point, what is augmented reality? What is virtual reality? Benefits of augmented reality, virtual reality. The difference between AR and VR. What is mixed reality? Artificial intelligence introduction in the metaverse. Financial economics of metaverse. Benefits of metaverse. Then they've got a whole section on the blockchain in the metaverse. Of course, this is the Blockchain Council, so they're gonna be big on the blockchain. So they go into blockchain overview, history of blockchain, need of decentralization in the metaverse, which to me is an interesting one. I'm a big fan of like grid-free technologies. Being an amateur radio operator, we're the people that can pass along messages when the cell phone's system goes offline. Smart contract capabilities in blockchain. Blockchain in metaverse, understanding tokens, understanding the NFT token standards, NFTs in metaverse, and cryptocurrencies in metaverse. I'm surprised they didn't mention the proof of activity protocol, which is a kind of NFT that uses your attention. Then they go into the tools that are being used in metaverse. There's about 6 big ones: Unity 3D, Unreal Engine, Amazon Sumerian, Spark AR, and Cybernetics. So those are some of the software tools that you could build your metaverse environment with. And then they've got use cases. Each one of these would make a great show topic. Gaming in the metaverse, meetings in the metaverse, virtual learning in the metaverse, social interactions in the metaverse, virtual real estate in metaverse, as David was mentioning Second Life earlier. And I know there's one now called Earth 2, I think, where you can buy little tiles of virtual real estate. They've got e-commerce in the metaverse, travel in metaverse. I'd like to be a metaverse travel agent. Personalized avatars, that's a whole topic. Digital identity in the metaverse. And then from there, it's on to the exam of, like I said, 100 marks. You need 60 plus to clear, and you can take it again after you fail in one day. So, I don't know what the benefits of a certification like that are. It's probably just acts more as I had a professor in college that said, college is a wrench on your mind. It just proves that you've got the stick-to-itiveness to work through a program. So I think some of these certifications are more to help you discipline your own life coaching, self-directed life coaching kind of thing. But they do offer lifetime access to the content. And, I'm not getting paid by the Blockchain Council. I just think these guys might be in a position to be credible for offering these certs with looks like they've got some good support. So yeah, and David, it is going to be a question of how robust is your bandwidth. That's going to be the new class system. I have the high bandwidth class, and the low bandwidth class will be the other nuance in the digital divide. So anyway, I hope I didn't bore you with some of that reading about the certified metaverse expert offering from the Blockchain Council. But oh, good. Hey, speak of Talib. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Always.
Hi.
So I will pass the mic.
Talib, your ears must have been burning. I was talking about you earlier.
Wallah. That's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Go, Taylor. You go.
Okay, Sharif, I finally got it. Finally. Okay.
Dr. Talib, how are you today?
Good, good. I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you, Sharif. It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Continue.
So, how are you? How is everything? What you want to share? What's your...
Continue
Yes.
first. Continue, please. Continue, please.
Well, I was just talking about how you can become certified as a certified metaverse
Yes.
expert by
Madam
the
Ali,
Blockchain Council. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about online certifications? Are they worth the digits, the bits they're printed on? David says no.
Okay, David, continue.
Madam Ali, yes, you want to add anything, Madam Ali?
Do you want to get Taylor to go
Okay,
first?
in that situation, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. David Smith, what you want to share as a concluding remarks for today?
Sharif, I love your programs and what we can do here. The social impact of the metaverse will be great when the metaverse finally happens. We saw in the last 10 months the hype stage of the metaverse with some initial trials, some initial actions, but it has really slowed down. Even Meta, Facebook, which changed the name to emphasize the metaverse, has dramatically scaled back their metaverse activities inside of it. So you see that going. You also understand, as we've talked about earlier, that some of the societal impacts can have very big impacts. And there's great things with it, particularly in education, in healthcare, in many of them. But then there's also many challenges as you look at privacy, security, regulations, bullying, all of those type of things in it. One of the early influencers in the metaverse was a lady who particularly was used in different metaverse environments, such as Population One and the others. And she had a problem in that she said people were coming up and groping her all the time, and that it kept happening, and there's no way that the metaverse application could handle that. There is many different ways that you can do it, but the societal impact can be great. And you know, the promise of the metaverse is that the physical environment and the virtual environments could be perceived as one reality. And that's going to take forever to happen. The digital divide is going to be a big player in that and how it's going to play. And these impacts we're just now beginning to understand. It is clear that we do not understand yet how to regulate the metaverse, how to interpret laws in the metaverse, how to handle the different ways where individual cultures have different takes in the metaverse because they're all smushed together. And those are things we still need to work on. We still need to define. We're making progress towards them. So, Sharif, that's my final remarks.
Mr. Daniel, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Yeah, it's like I said, this is a topic that could spawn a whole array of related shows. But I think David brought up the legal basis of the online world, and I think I heard somewhere once that legally the internet is treated as a building. So if you break into a part of the internet that you're not supposed to be in, that's considered like breaking and entering. Or if you take something, that's considered burglary. So they're doing their best to kind of adapt, real space laws into cyberspace laws. But that process is an evolving one. So in fact, there's a whole other potential show topic is like metaverse legal principles would be interesting. I think we've got this writers and actors strike going on. Well, right now in the Screen Actors Guild is on strike because of various reasons, and the writers have gone out. But that got me thinking, what would be an even bigger union would be an attention union. Everyone that consumes all of this pre-packaged entertainment, what about their power? What about because you have the power of putting your eyeballs on a piece of media or not. And the metaverse might actually give the potential to organize like an attention guild or an attention union where we could demand better media. Don't consume media, become the media, as I think Tim Leary used to say back in the 80s when that was becoming a possibility. But there will be media consumers and media providers. So that's kind of a built-in class system. Not everyone is going to, create their own system. They just want to relax on the couch and play a game or watch some one-way media, which I guess that's always going to be the dynamic. But I hope we can have a civilization that's way more interactive and way more, interesting and not just passive. An active, creative kind of civilization rather than a passive one. So I will pull for those metaverse tools to become building blocks of that, and then I'll wrap up my concluding remarks there. Thanks again.
Thank you. Madam Ali, what's your concluding remarks for today? Dr. Talib, what's your concluding remarks for today, or what you want to discuss?
Is it me?
I think she's
Hello?
going.
Sorry, my
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it's you. Yeah.
No, I think it's incredibly exciting, the creative ability we've got to kind of push the boundaries and make a positive impact. But there's also kind of problems with, it's basically privacy, protection of children, health concerns. When you were saying that that they got kind of a hangover if they're in virtual reality too long. And I know from the few times that I've used a headset, I just feel disorientated and sick. So, and access is also really important, and kind of identity fraud and hacking as well. So I think I think it's complex and multifaceted, but regardless of what we think, it's going to happen in one way or the other. And sometimes I think it's the industry that actually creates. I don't know whether it's really the demand, to be honest, as opposed to the industry pushing the envelope to see where it goes. And it is quite confusing because I've always used Facebook since it started, and it's quite confusing how it fits together. So I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't an underlying agenda. And I know people sometimes copy and paste and say that, you know, once you've posted photographs or anything, as you know, on Facebook, that you lose you kind of intellectual property rights. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but you know, so all those questions need to be answered really. But the digital space obviously isn't going anywhere, and something that's immersive that engages us is obviously kind of going to draw people in. So and in our schools particularly, the RSA and you know Sir Ken Robinson before he died, that we're this generation have been so overly visually stimulated that we have to teach differently, and it has to be something that's interactive and also something you know that's kind of student led really, because they want to be autonomous. They don't just want to be told, they want to kind of learn and discover and inquire and you know think for themselves. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Sorry.
Thank you. Dr. Talib, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Okay, I'm going to start with concluding remarks.
Dr. Talib.
My concluding remarks are connected to the third world, to the world that we live in. In the world that we live in, David, the issues of privacy are not an issue now. They are more important issues. And the issues of children also being affected are not very important to us. But it's important to note that the movements of people and how people are intending to live their lives is very, very important to all of us here. Now, that means that the metaverse would actually act like all the other Internet of Things that we have had so far. Today, I was following at our parliament, a debate on a new law that's going to pass by. This new law is imposing some very harsh factors on people that misuse the social media, and the position against those laws is very, very big in the street. All parties are against it because social media is not, the metaverse is part of the social media. They're not, how should I say, they're not going to allow for that. Now, I think that what David talked about is very important to the Western world, but not to the developing world. So I just want to point that out, and maybe what the other David talked about is very important, because talk about strikes now. That's very important to us. We need to look at that and take a position on that. Now, issues of children are very important also to us, but they are not in the priority list of there now. Fortunately, they're not. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say a few words, and I will not say anything more. Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you, Dr. Talib Rafael. Thank you. After a long time, you joined today's sessions. I want to give a special thanks for joining today. Thank you, Professor David Smith. Thank you, Mr. Daniel, and thank you, Madam Ali Rice. And I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.